reaches the crowd line. Watch for the steep pull up. As the speed bleeds off, the aircraft will come into the hover for the first of its, I think it's fair to say, its characteristic manoeuvre. The nose over. Armed Forces. This is the Naval Wildcat HMA-2, and there's also the Wildcat AH-1, which serves with the Army Air Corps. And unlike its predecessor, the Lynx, both versions have a wheeled undercarriage. You'll remember that most Army Lynx, not all, the Mark 9 later had a wheeled undercarriage, most Army Lynx had a skid landing gear, and the Naval had a wheeled undercarriage for ships in operation. The decision was taken with the new Wildcat when it was developed to give them all wheeled landing gear. It's so important when you're pushing these aircraft around very small helicopter landing pads on the sterns of frigates and destroyers. There you see a kind of spiral loop. Those of you that remember back to the Lynx with the Black Eagles will remember the amazing backflip. I really like that manoeuvre from the Black Cat. You will see it again a little bit later on towards the end of its display. It's a kind of loop with a twist in it as well. Very, very effective. As the aircraft comes back in front of you, you can clearly see the kind of growth on its nose right on the front of the aircraft. That's the MX Westcam electro-optical device. It carries a range of sensors, including a very, very high-powered camera, able to detect targets at very long range, both day and night, in any weather condition. As with any platform, the Wildcat capabilities have been developed significantly since electric service began to replace the Mark 8 Lynx with Royal Navy units, because these helicopters can be armed with marklet missiles, which they use for the destruction of small ships or swarms of boats. They've got the Stingray torpedo for anti-submarine, the Sea Venom missile, which will be used against larger surface targets, I should say, such as corvettes or frigates. And then in the door, the Wildcat can have mounted a .50 caliber machine gun, and on board it can carry long-range sniper machines, for example, for the knocking out of a Wildcat display. And it's Lieutenant Scott Sunderland, an instructor pilot on that unit, who is at the controls. So here we see the first part of a flat 270-degree manoeuvre back onto the B axis, and then the same mirror image around its reposition. And as you watch this display, just imagine this aircraft operating on a very, very small helicopter landing pad. We are talking sort of tennis court size on the stern of a Royal Navy frigate or destroyer, in strong winds, in all sorts of weather conditions. There's nowhere to divert to. You can't just, conditions are a little bit out of limits. I'm heading off to land because you're in the middle of the ocean. These guys certainly take their job very seriously. A massive capability plus to any surface vessel. Squadron, part of the wider Wildcat Maritime Force, all of which is based at RNAS Universal in Somerset. Some 400 personnel at its disposal, as well as 28 Wildcats. And these Wildcat HMA-2s divided across two squadrons. This one, as I say, from 825, which is the training and force generation unit, and then there's a 15 squadron, which is now the frontline operational unit. And as part of that development of capabilities that I was mentioning earlier, with the arrival on the force of the missiles I mentioned, it's allowed the Wildcat really to mature as a platform and regain some of those capabilities that were there when it was the Lynx Mark 8 in service.
So if you missed that very impressive nose down manoeuvre right at the start of the display, it's now time to have your camera ready again as the Lynx comes into the hover and a big nose down dive away.